This video series is brought to you by FleetPride, the heavy-duty parts and service authority.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Uptime!
That's right. FleetPride is proud to present David the Truckman Sickles.
Hello and welcome to Fleet Uptime, another opportunity for us to talk best practices in technology, truck parts, and service to help you maximize equipment uptime and profitability. My name's David from Fleet Equipment, and today, yes, I know there's a decent chance it's still snowing in your part of the country, but that doesn't matter because it's never too early to talk about spring maintenance. Spring is just around the corner, and winter can take quite the toll on your trucks if you don't look out for them. So in an effort to maximize uptime, I think it's the perfect time to talk with two masters of uptime over at FleetPride about their go-to spring maintenance tips. Chris Coleman, Area Manager of Southeast Service at FleetPride, and James Winton, Director of Category Management at FleetPride. Let's get right to it. Chris, James, thank you both for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and we're talking about maintenance today. So Chris, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background and why we can trust you as a maintenance expert.
Hey, Dave, thanks for having us on again. My name's Chris Coleman. I'm Southeast Area Manager for FleetPride. I've been in the transportation business now for about 31 years. I've worked on trucks, trailers, heavy equipment, the whole 9 yards.
Nice, nice. And James, what about you?
Thanks for having me, David. James Winton, Director of Category Management here at FleetPride. Been in the aftermarket parts business for 30 plus years, whether it's light duty all the way up to heavy duty. Been around vehicles my entire life, so we got a lot to share.
Very nice, very nice. Well, that'll come in handy today because, we were talking about just before we started this podcast today how we're seeing fluctuating temperatures all over the country right now. I think it's 65 degrees here in Akron, Ohio, where I am, and it's the middle of February, so that's extremely uncommon. We have these fluctuating temperatures. What does that mean for truck service? What are some of the standout service needs that you're seeing as we move from winter to spring, or as we're having these extreme variations in temperature? Chris, let's start with you.
Going from the winter weather that we've had when everything's cool and all the trucks everything's kind of meshing together, going over into the spring and summer, the cooling system is probably one of the biggest challenges we see with trucks. It's the time of year now to check your belts, hoses, your belt tensioners, make sure your radiators are flushed out. Driving through all the salt and the snow of the wintertime, it all gets in your radiator, clogs it up, and reduces your cooling capacity.
Absolutely. James, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think Chris is right on point there. It's really a little bit of preventive maintenance. From the wear and tear of the winter will go a long way as you get into the heat of summer.
Absolutely. And Chris, how does this differ as we're talking about heavy duty trucks as opposed to maybe a vocational medium duty truck or something light duty? Is there a difference that we're looking at there?
Yeah, it's all the same mechanical parts. They all have the same reactions with hot and cold, and run in the same environments.
James, what HVAC related wear and tear do we need to look out for as we're moving from winter to spring?
Yeah, HVAC really isn't a preventive maintenance type of category, but as you think about, from either a technician perspective or a driver perspective, you want to make sure the condenser, like the radiator, is clear of debris. You want to make sure there's not dust and dirt there. Look for leaks. Obviously, if the AC lines have oil build up and dirt build up, that's a sign of a leak. That should get fixed right away. And then I think the cabin air filter is probably one that most people don't even think about. But vehicles that are in more severe environments tend to get more dust and dirt in the cabin air filter, which restricts airflow, which reduces the efficiency of the AC system. So those are the main things. Outside of the temperature is not as cold as I'd like it to be. And over time that happens, and that's a sign of low refrigerant and needs to be addressed.
That makes a lot of sense. And when you're talking about that cabin air filter or filters in general, is there a regular interval that you suggest checking on those to ensure that they're working properly? Or is that something more that once you feel it or once you suspect something might be wrong, that's the time to look at it?
I would say, and Chris can probably jump on this too, but I would say from a cabin air filter perspective, whenever you're changing the air filter, you should absolutely change the cabin air filter. More frequently, if you're in a dusty or dirty environment, or as Chris educated me on last week, if you have pets in your cab and you're getting pet hair through the cabin air filter, it's no different than your house filter at home. The more dirt and debris that's there is it's going to decrease airflow. And you want to make sure it's clean and clear. Also, you're breathing in those particles too, right? So you want to make sure you get them cleaned out.
I totally agree with that. And if any of the vocational type trucks, dump trucks, heavy haul type trucks, is off-road construction type trucks, that you may have to do that in between services as well.
Okay. That absolutely makes sense, especially for a lot of those vocational applications, where you're driving off-road or, in dusty environments, for sure. Is there anything that drivers can be doing to help the fleet maintain that HVAC system throughout the year?
I think it's just awareness when they see an issue. Notify somebody right away, because that can go downhill pretty fast. As I talked about those leaks, blower motor rattles. But I think for the most part, it's just regular maintenance on the vehicle. Obviously vibration is really hard on these systems, so the vocation will really demand the more frequent conversation on how the system is operating.
Yeah. So Chris, corrosion is obviously a huge truck killer in a lot of parts of the country, especially where there's a lot of salt being laid down on the roads, things like that. What can these fleets be doing to help prevent that damage as they're sending their trucks out?
David, just short of moving to Phoenix, Arizona, where you don't have to deal with it, there's not a lot of things that are proven to take care of the corrosion. Ultimately, washing the truck when you go into a snow event and there's salt and brine that's been placed down on the road, washing that off. Are you going to get all of it off? Probably not, but it's going to help the situation. If your fleet is in that area, there are companies out there that do what they call a oiling, and they spray a light film of oil under the truck, on the axles, things of that nature. Obviously, it's clean when they do it. And then that oil keeps the salt from intrusion, in little cracks and crevices, but just a constant washing of getting the salt off the truck. Or there's moving to Phoenix, Arizona, whichever one works best.
Hey, if that works for you, then that sounds like a great solution. When you say a constant washing, are you saying, if I send my truck out during the day and there happens to be salt on the road, that night I need to be washing it?
Not necessarily that often, but obviously, and during a snow event, it doesn't go on for months on end typically. So once that event's gone and the salt is, had a chance to wash off the road, then wash your truck. And that way that it's just not stuck up under the truck.
So we've heard a lot of reports about fleets maybe deferring their PMs because of, whatever reason it might be. Maybe they are having trouble finding parts, or, their financial situation just isn't great at this time. Is this a good idea if you don't, for whatever reason, if you don't feel like you can either afford that maintenance right now, or, basically what I'm asking is, are they going to end up paying more in the long run for deferring that maintenance, or do they really need to be sticking to this schedule?
It is something that if you stay on a consistent maintenance schedule and you're looking at the truck, you're seeing the problems with the truck. If you start pushing your maintenance out and you're not looking at the truck regular, what could be a $300-$400 repair could turn into a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 repair.
Mm.
And, and not only that part of it, but, it gets to even going through scale houses and DOT inspections. If you had done a regular PM, you may have caught a blown wheel seal or low brakes or an air leak or something of that nature. So you didn't do the PM, you didn't catch it. Now you're at the scale house going through a inspection, and they put you out of service. Now you're having to call a road service to make the same repair you would have made in your shop to start with.
James, how would deferring preventative maintenance possibly affect the HVAC system of a truck?
I don't know that there is necessarily a preventive maintenance plan for HVAC, but I think it's more just visual cues, right? If you've got an oil leak, you got a problem. Oil leaks will tend to lead down the road to oil starvation of the compressor will fail. Then it becomes a very costly replacement because you have to replace all the parts, do all the flushing. Getting it ahead of time, getting it ahead of failure, being able to fix those oil leaks will save you a tremendous amount of money, time, downtime down the road for sure.
If you wanted to maybe, Chris, defer only until the weather gets a little bit nicer, do you think that would be a big deal? Maybe you're only skipping your preventative maintenance cycle during the winter time.
I don't think that it's a great idea, just for the simple fact of things failing, wheel seals, brake issues. You could have a U-joint go out. Even the fact of coolant leaks, oil leaks, things of that nature that maybe the driver's not picking up on or not catching or whatever. And, it just leads into larger problems going down the road.
I'll add, Dave, I think, depending on what your cycle is, you're getting a trained eye on the truck. They might find something else that nobody else is even thinking about that, isn't even in the cycle route now, but it can get fixed.
They're 20 to 25,000 miles out on PM services, some even higher. If you push that 25,000 mile service out any further, you're getting up into some big mileage that somebody has not had their eyes on the truck.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with my just personal consumer vehicle, I'm at least getting my oil changed every 5,000 miles or so. And James, to your point, I'm getting a professional whose eyes are on that vehicle at that time, and they can tell me, hey, you've got XYZ also wrong. Maybe I need an alignment or something, and they can alert me to that, something that I might not have noticed on my own. So that's a really great point. 25,000 miles, that's a long way to wait. Pushing that out any further could be pretty detrimental for sure. Chris, I wanted to ask you about the International Road Check. It happens every year, and every year, hundreds or thousands of vehicles are taken off the road because of, maybe it's brakes or tire violations. So how could this have been prevented through maintenance?
By regular scheduled maintenance, getting a professional eye to look at the truck, fixing things before they become a huge issue. Instead of having out of service brakes, go ahead and change the brakes before they hit that mark, and it keeps you from getting shut down and having costly on the road repairs. That's going to be your major thing that any fleet could do to avoid getting in trouble during that audit time.
Absolutely, yeah, that could go a long way for truck uptime for sure.
Yeah. And any of the fleets, owner operators, they can always go to FleetPride.com/deals and see what kind of deals FleetPride has going on. Because during that the months prior to the International Road Check, we will offer a inspection at a discounted rate.
That's great to know. Thank you. Well, Chris, James, really appreciate your time here today. Thank you for joining me. I think our audience is going to get a lot out of your tips and your insight for maximizing uptime through maintenance. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Take care, guys. Hey, that's it for our show. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, you know what time it is.
Uptime! This video was brought to you by FleetPride, the heavy-duty parts and service authority. Contact FleetPride at fleetpride.com to learn more.